Hello everyone. So today I want to read for you from my contemporary romance novel, Under a Namibian Sky. And there are several reasons for wanting to do this. First of all, I love reading, yes, I love listening to audio, and I love it when somebody reads something to me. It takes me right back to my childhood when my mom used to read bedtime stories to me. So I guess this kind of ties in with that, because what I've discovered is this. Although I love reading, I love listening to audiobooks, I should say, I usually listen to them just before I go to sleep in bed. And what I've discovered is that if I listen to an audiobook, I wake up in the middle of the night and there's someone still talking in my ear, and then sometimes it's difficult to go back to sleep because I'm now listening, right? But with a video, and so I've been experimenting, if you listen to a video story at night as your bedtime story, there comes a point at which the video stops. So even if you fall asleep during the video, you will then continue to sleep peacefully, or I do at least. So I wish the same for you. And so this is one of the reasons I'm doing it. The second reason, of course, is because I want to introduce you to my beautiful and wonderful characters. These characters asked to live in the world. And they are lovely and I love them. And I hope you do too. Some of my readers who've read these books love them too. And so I asked which of these books I should read first, and Under a Namibian Sky was the one that was chosen. That's why I'm reading this one first. So if you also like it, please like and share the video, and I'd be honoured if you would subscribe to my channel, because then I can do loads more of these kinds of videos for you too. Now, why Namibia? As most of you know, or those of you who don't know me, Namibia is very close to my heart. It's where I was born. I know the place very well. I know the characters very well. And to me, settings in novels are extremely important. They're like another character, aren't they? So to me, it's wonderful to be able to write something that is set in Namibia. So there are other books in the series, and more coming. So it's wonderful to return there again and again, you know, to sort of revisit Namibia and be able to holiday there without moving. Okay, so Under a Namibian Sky, Chapter 1. Naomi! Naomi knew that tone of voice. She hurried barefoot across the cool, dark slate tiles and sat down opposite her Auntie Elsa, the nickname almost everyone used. Naomi crossed her long bare legs. She eyed the menus and various email printouts scattered on the coffee table that separated the two sofas on which they sat. It looked like work, lots of work. Naomi sighed. Elsa Smith's melodic voice had carried through the main house of the lodge. Naomi's guardian, adoptive mother and boss, comfortable in her mid-50s, was sitting in the guest lounge. Her reading glasses were balancing on the tip of her nose. Her short steel grey hair was frizzed from the heat. She was checking through the new menus Chef had prepared in time for their next guest's arrival, and doling out tasks to her adoptive daughter and other staff. The airy shaded room where the old house's thick walls thwarted the afternoon's heat was just about the best place to be. It also helped that the blazing Namibian sun threw its rays on the other side of the house at this time of the day. Auntie Elsa was still busy sorting through the menus, and although aware of Naomi's presence, didn't look up as she spoke. "Look at the email on top of that pile. Kerry printed it on pink paper, so I guess she must have thought it was important. I must congratulate her. She was right." Naomi knew what the pink paper meant. Is it another American wanting to observe African elephants? Naomi made air quotes around the word observe. She picked up the sheet of paper, but before she could read it, Auntie Elsa snorted. No, this time it's an Italian prince. Auntie Elsa mimicked Naomi's air quotes around the word prince. Naomi sighed again. She removed the sunglasses she had placed on top of her head and ran a hand through her long, straight blonde hair. Oh no, not another spoiled, egotistical top brass from some fast-paced industry coming to relax. She'd be willing to bet he'd be the bane of everyone's life for the duration of his stay here, as they all were. But turning them away, Naomi knew, wasn't a choice, as they paid well. It had become a source of amusement among the staff, who had made a game of trying to guess how much over the odds these guys and guests would pay when they checked out. Auntie Elsa had a photograph taken with each of them, and then the framed photos were hung on the walls in the well-appointed dining room for all to see. It worked. Every time. It was obvious these rich guys moved in similar circles, and even when they didn't know each other personally, they recognized the faces when they saw the photos. They seemed to want to outdo each other even here. Naomi ran a finger down the page as she read. This is different. It says here he wants to photograph and paint the elephants. I'm not sure he knows what he's talking about. Naomi reread the email, just to be sure she's got it right the first time. That's when she noticed the familiar logo. Oh, and he's not just any prince this time. He's the Armati prince, no less. From the supercar dynasty, if I'm not mistaken. Auntie Elsa looked up and smiled. Yes, he is. And I thought you would make the perfect guide for him, Naomi. You're very good with these types, and God knows we could use his money. We need to update the sanitation system for the entire lodge. The repairs and upkeep of this place seem never-ending, and the costs of doing so just go up year after year. This booking has come just at the right time. I don't know what I'd do without you, Naomi. What would we all do without you, my girl? No pressure then. But Naomi returned Auntie Elsa's smile. Auntie Elsa checked her watch. Well, I'm nearly done with these new menus, and I suppose you'd better get going. The new prince will be here within the hour. Naomi's head snapped up. Really? She turned the email over and saw attached to it his arrival schedule sent by the private airplane company from Windhoek. Auntie Elsa gathered the menus and the other emails and got up. I've allocated Suite 22 for him, and it's the biggest and most secluded, and Suite 11 opposite for his secretary, who's accompanying him. I believe Kerry has already arranged for the rooms to be thoroughly cleaned again, even though it was done just this morning, but perhaps it would be a good thing if you checked it again, don't you think? We don't want to give him reason to complain about any of the simple things, do we? And make sure Ota Jan brings all their luggage directly to their suites. He's getting forgetful in his old age. Promptly on the hour, the sound of the small plane alerted everyone to their guests' imminent arrival. Ota Jan was already waiting under the big thorn tree when Naomi got to the landing strip. It was situated on the other side of the grand main house with its gabled rafters. The old native Herero man's face beamed when he saw Naomi. He walked towards her, hand outstretched in greeting. Chica! Naomi returned his smile and greeting and stood by his side as they watched the Cessna plane flying closer. Naomi and Ota Jan glanced wide-eyed at each other when the aircraft was near enough to identify. It wasn't the usual bush plane they'd been expecting. Rather, a small jet was flying towards them. Only a few guests could afford such luxurious transport to the lodge, and they were always the biggest pains in the butt. Naomi's heart sank further at the thought of how much more challenging than she'd imagined her life could be over the next few days. The Cessna jet came down flawlessly on the hardened part of the long sandy driveway created especially as a landing strip for the small planes. It stopped amid the small sandstorm it had generated. Otayan walked towards it, and Naomi followed with trepidation. The jet's door swung open, and a man's head appeared. Naomi and Otayan stopped nearby to wait for him to disembark. The man who came down the short ladder looked to be in his late 20s or early 30s, a good few years older than Naomi, at any rate. His muscular body was immediately evident and further enhanced by his immaculate dark blue jeans and a tailored white shirt. Naomi glimpsed a scattering of dark hair on his chest, peeking out from beneath the unbuttoned shirt. A somewhat thicker coat on his forearms peeped out from where the shirt sleeves were rolled up. Naomi didn't know what she'd expected, but this was not how she imagined Mr. Amati to look. Mr. Amati saw them and raised a hand in greeting before reaching back to take the hand of an older lady. She walked carefully down the ladder. Her short, sharp, dark hair was in sharp contrast to her stylish white pantsuit and flat white shoes. When she stood next to Mr. Amati, she ran her hand down her clothes, the other hand clutching a brown leather handbag. Then she looked up, and a beautiful smile lit up her face. She stood tall and straight, but he was a whole head taller than her. Naomi briefly wondered if she was his mother. They looked so much alike. But then she remembered that the woman had to be his secretary. Mr. Amati turned towards the plane and pushed the ladder back inside the body of the jet before he closed the door. He heaved a large black bag over his shoulder with such ease it appeared to be lighter than it undoubtedly was. Long strides towards them further showed his athleticism and easy, aristocratic bearing. The lady kept pace with him. Her confidence and fluid movements belied the fact that she was so much older than him. "Buongiorno. I am Luca. This is Santina. I'm okay to leave my jet here. You're not expecting any others to arrive soon?" His voice was deeper than Naomi had imagined. Although his English was perfect, she delighted in the slight Italian accent that appeared so exotic to her ears. Experiencing all the different accents was one perk of working with so many foreigners. Yes, it's okay to leave your jet here. Naomi felt silly for having stumbled over her words. You don't have a pilot? Her question was so obviously superfluous, even to her, that she felt herself blush at her clumsiness. No, I fly myself. Much more exciting and fulfilling. See? Luca didn't appear to need her response, and instead offered his hand in greeting to Otayan. The old Herero man smiled and nodded and tried to take Luca's bag, but he held on to it and handed Otayan a much smaller, lighter bag to carry, leaving a reassuring hand for a moment on the old man's shoulder. There's no way he could be this kind to Otayan when no doubt he'll be demanding, rude and unreasonable soon. Why would he be trying to impress them? How long would it take before his true colours emerged? Naomi had seen this kind of behaviour from other princes before, after all. It never lasted. She wasn't impressed. Santina smiled and shook Naomi's hand. "Buongiorno! How lovely it is here!" Her voice, although authoritative, was clear and carried the musical tones often found in Italian voices. Her smile was even more engaging up close, and her eyes reflected her strong spirit. Santina's warm personality and elegance made an immediate positive impression on Naomi. Luca moved towards Naomi, his hand resting for a moment on Santina's back, and they smiled at each other, warm smiles, as though they genuinely liked each other. Then Luca's hand enveloped Naomi's. He was gorgeous at a distance. Close up, He was the most handsome man she had ever seen, looking more like a model than a spoiled rich Italian prince. His smile displayed straight white teeth from a full sensual mouth. Tall, much taller now he was in front of her, his physical presence crackled with energy. His hair was so black it shone blue in the sun, and intense eyes, like pools of the darkest water, rooted her to the spot and robbed her of her ability to think, much less speak. Feeling foolish and like a peasant in front of this dazzling man, she nearly tripped as she stepped back when he leaned forward to kiss her on both cheeks. It was the European way, she had forgotten. He grabbed her elbow with his free hand and pulled her upright. "The sand is so soft here, no?" He smiled again. Naomi was, for moments, dazzled by his beauty, the soft, erotic, expensive fragrance of his cologne and his gorgeous dark eyes, with lashes so long they touched his cheeks when he looked down. It felt as though she was continuing to fall, but his hand, hot on her elbow, kept her steady. He may look like a god, but she had no doubt at some point he'd behave like one, and not a good god either. Naomi felt a small victory of taking back her power as she extricated herself from Luca's grip on her arm. She could feel her hair flick as she turned to lead the way. "This way." Ahead of them, Ota Jan, carrying Luca's smaller bag, was already rounding the corner of the house, on his way to the guest suites. Naomi glanced at Luca from beneath her eyelashes. He was chatting and laughing with Santina as they walked side by side. He wasn't what she'd expected, but she was quite prepared for the change in character which would inevitably happen. Perhaps Santina's influence will stay him from becoming too demanding. He seemed very respectful towards her. All the same, thank goodness he'd be here for only a few days. Until next time.